when it comes to sequels of popular classic Disney animations, I kind of always proceed with caution. Sometimes I feel like they're really good, and sometimes they are so bad. However, with The Jungle Book 2, I actually thought it was pretty decent. It's not my favourite sequel, but I enjoyed it for the most part. I think I did originally see this when it first came out in 2003, maybe the year after, but I couldn't remember anything about it. Having watched it now for what I'm going to just consider the first time, I was pretty impressed with it. Never will it be as good as The Jungle Book, but it retained a lot of the same great qualities, and it didn't seem like it was trying to become a classic. It was just a nice, enjoyable sequel that's a fun way to revisit some of the characters and the songs that we loved from the first one. It's directed by Steve Trenbirth and written by Karl Geurs and Carter Crocker. I apologise if I pronounced any of that incorrectly. And there's certainly one, the voice cast is great, but there's one that I think is brilliant, and that's Haley Joel Osment as Mowgli. Absolutely fantastic. The rest of the voice cast is great. We've got John Goodman, Mae Whitman, Jim Cummings, Phil Collins. Fantastic voice cast. For the most part, the voices sound like they do in the first film. There were a couple of times where I thought that doesn't really sound exactly like what I would have expected or remembered. But I have no real issues with any of that whatsoever. So the narrative itself, Mowgli is now... Well, I'm just trying to think if this will contain spoilers for the original. I'm just going to say no. I'm assuming you've seen the original. Basically, in this one, Mowgli is living now in the village with the other humans, and he decides that he's missing the jungle too much and he wants to go back there, and he goes back into the jungle, but there are severe dangers, not just for him, but for certain other characters from the village. And I think the message here is pretty clear, but the conclusion is not. I'm not going to say how it ends, but I will say that I'm not sure what message I'm taking away from this. The narrative focuses on who you are, where you come from, and I guess who you feel like you are. But at the same time, I just don't think it actually concludes. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not something that I thought was a particular problem. I think the narrative unfolds nicely. We spend enough time in the village to get to know other characters before we go back to the jungle. Most of the characters from the original are there. There are some pretty entertaining ones. I don't want to spoil too much, but we have Colonel Hathi, and that gives us Colonel Hathi's march. Obviously, Baloo and Bagheera and Shere Khan and Kaa are all there. The birds are there. Absolutely hilarious. In terms of music, we have a couple of repeated songs. We have Bare Necessities, and as I said, Colonel Hathi's March. We also have Jungle Rhythm, which is a song I knew, but not one, I didn't know why I knew it, I just did. But that's in this, and I really like it. I think it's one that's really entertaining. So I have no issues with the soundtrack. I don't think there were as many songs in it as there are in the first film. That's not a problem, because the songs that were there were all quality. I have no complaints about this whatsoever. It isn't, the best film ever. It's not the most powerful sequel. It's not that emotional. To me personally, I didn't get emotional at any point, to be honest, which is rare for a Disney film. But I still enjoyed it. It's got 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which I think is a bit low. I'd give it a 6. I'd definitely give it a 6. It's good fun. It works well. Not perfect, but if you like The Jungle Book, I think it's definitely worth watching The Jungle Book too.